Hello, hello, hey there, and welcome into the final episode, at least for now, of Hustle from Home. I'm Josh Ellis.
And I'm Amy Anderson. We're so excited that you're joining us for this seventh and really good episode on some really common questions that we get. We're about to bust down some of your fears and answer some of your biggest questions. We've compiled a lot of great answers from our experts and excited to get rolling. Josh, how do you feel about it today?
I feel great about this episode. I have to say that it's something that really hits the nail on the head for us because when we started this, I don't know that I'd ever done a Zoom call before the first practice episode that we recorded. So we were really as worried about the technology aspect of recording a podcast from between you, me, and Lauren, our producer, three separate locations. This is a first for us.
It is. And, it's funny because I look back to some of our episodes where, I'm fumbling with my headphones because I don't have a microphone at home. There's no fancy equipment here in my home office. And, we just made it work. And I think this is a great example of what some of our experts are about to share with us that, it doesn't have to be rocket science, right? When you start, you really can get a lot done with some of the things you already have at home.
Well, yeah, we knew that we had to cover technology because it's definitely one of the pain points for people. One of the things that we hear most often from folks that have a business idea or a great side hustle in mind is that they're just afraid to start because, especially in this internet age, right, they don't think of themselves as tech savvy.
Right. And, the good news is I think that people are about to share with us and that we heard over and over in these interviews that we did, Josh, is that you don't have to be tech savvy. And there's, that little voice in your head that says, well, I need to learn this many things and I don't know who to ask, or I'm not capable of this. Those voices are wrong. And I think one of the best quotes is really in our first expert, we spoke to Jeannine Blackwell, and one of the best things that she said, you'll want to hear, if you have bought a new phone in the last couple of years, you're going to want to hear what she has to say about technology.
Yeah, as much as anything, I think Janine's message was just to embrace the technology that you have in front of you. We also talked to Emily Leigh, excellent expert on productivity, and her advice was very much that you can just Google things. If when in doubt, Google it because there's an answer out there. That's the way I fix things around the house because I have no idea how to do much more than turn a wrench. But if you Google it, there's bound to be a video or a list of steps or something. And sometimes, Emily being someone who makes productivity planners, sometimes analog paper and pencil is best. So you don't have to feel the need to have some big technological solution for whatever your problem is.
That's true. And, what I love about her feedback too is that you can really keep it simple and stay productive. So that's something we all want to do, right? Especially these days when we're juggling so many things.
Absolutely.
We also talked to Brandon White, who has some great perspective on checking out tutorials, really. And I think that this is something, if you've never watched an online tutorial, we're saying Google it, but if you've never watched that, you don't maybe realize they're going to take you step by step through everything you need to know. And there's so much help available out there. I really think that his experience in talking about not being overwhelmed, right? Just starting from the beginning and starting with the basics is really relevant to a lot of people who are starting a side hustle.
Yeah, people want to help. There are people out there who it's their side hustle to help you learn how to technically manage your side hustle. I just think that it's really for me, coming from Success Magazine, this is personal development 101 is to find a mentor because they're really all around you and people want to help. We talked to Chris Guillebeau, who told us that you don't have to be a master of everything. Just focus on the platforms and the technologies that are really essential to your side hustle. And it can be, as we keep saying, really simple. That's the thing is we have this tendency we don't know what it's going to take. And so we build it up in our head to be way more than it is when a lot of times, either the platform or the template for these sites or even sales pages is already built out. And so you can just kind of plug in your information, your products, and really hit the ground running.
Absolutely. And several of our experts recommend even specific software or apps as we go through these questions, including our last guest, Rick Mulready, who recommends if you're someone who wants to keep it so simple that you just want one place to do everything, like maybe you need email and you need a website, maybe you're ready to set up a sales page of some kind, he recommends his pick for an all-in-one platform that can do everything for you. I mean, talk about simple. And the great thing about Rick is he's got a lot of experience in terms of running courses. He also has experience with email lists and building those. And he talks to us about advertising. And he gives us some really quick tips on how to start with a small budget and without getting too technical, how you can get some results. So that was exciting to hear too.
Yeah, and these are guests that you've probably listened to the full episodes that we've done with them, but this is all new content. We didn't share with you the tech questions through their first interviews, the original episodes. So this is not a clip show. It's original stuff, and you're going to want to hear it. I know that for sure. So why don't we get started, Amy?
Let's do it. First up, Jeannine Blackwell.
Jeannine, what is your best tip for someone who's nervous about technology?
To embrace technology. So the flip of it is, when I think about, look, most of us are in that same boat. I meet a lot of people who are creating their business for the first time, and they feel like, wow, I'm not techie. I repel technology. I don't get along with technology. And that's a fear, right? And it's a barrier around moving. And I can tell you as somebody who I am not techie at all. Like on a good day, I might be able to get my Apple remote to do what I'm telling it to do on the TV, but most of the days it requires some assistance from my teenager, right? So, the fact that I'm not techie and yet I lead an online company, my entire business is online, is a testament to the fact that you don't have to be techie to do this. And I think what is important when I think about embracing technology, it's just redefining what kind of relationship you have to have with technology. This isn't the day when we have to learn how to code and we have to know how to do all these technical things to have a business. I'm willing to bet everybody here within arm's reach, you probably have a smartphone next to you, right? You have it on your desk, your table, it might even be in your hand. So when you look at that, that right there, everything that you're able to do on that phone, I'm willing to bet is a lot more than you can do on that phone a couple years ago. Like if you upgraded recently, every time you upgrade your phone, you get all these new things that you have to learn how to do on your phone. And it's pretty amazing that we can send emails, we can send money to each other, we can share video, we can do all kinds of things off of that computer in our hand. And most of you guys can launch your side hustle, run that business from everything that you could do on that phone. And I think that's something that if we can pay attention to that and realize, wow, I really do know how to do a lot on this, that you can 100% run a business and know what you need to know. I always say if you can save a file, you can run an online business. And most of us can definitely save a file on our computer. Most of us know how to take a video on our phone. And that means that we have all the tech skill we need.
So what about apps or anything that you have in mind for reaching people? Because if someone's moving into this online space for the first time, or maybe they're transitioning from a brick and mortar, how do they let people know that they're online? Do they need some new technology to do that?
Well, the wonderful thing is that if we look at what's available to us, just like you said on social media is a massive broadcasting platform, right? We have Facebook, we have Instagram, you have LinkedIn, there's others. If you look at those platforms, they are broadcasting studios, basically. Like these are free platforms that all of us can tap into. We can share written content, we can share video content, we can even broadcast live, on Instagram Live, Facebook Live. We can host communities online for free on these platforms. We can have our own groups, our own communities. So when you think about that, wow, that's a huge free resource that everybody here can tap into. And if I were starting my side hustle today, that'd be the first place I go, because I don't have to invest in a tool or something else to do that. And if I'm starting that, what would that look like? It would be about thinking about what can I consistently go contribute on the platforms that my people are on. So if your demographic, let's say you want to work with businesses and your audience is on LinkedIn, then what are you doing over on LinkedIn every day? And if you think about what you're doing over there, you think, well, what do I post, right? That's usually the first thing we think, like, I don't know what am I supposed to be sharing? One trick that I think really helps when I'm thinking about that is to just think about, what is the conversation I want to be part of? Like, what is the conversation that you want to host? If your work is in leadership development, then you're hosting a party about leadership development and you're the host or hostess. So when you go around, you're starting the conversation with new people that are showing up and inviting them into the party and getting them connected in the conversation. So thinking about that and posting consistently would be the first place I would go, because it so aligns with the idea of moving fast, finding your people online without spending any money right now, which is important. And I know a lot of you guys have questions about, gee, I don't know what's the right idea. I don't know what my people are really interested in. What better way than to use these platforms as a focus group? Like, you can find your people and then you can connect and you can see what they resonate with. And that's a great way to help refine your idea as you're working on what you're going to launch.
Thank you, Jeanine. Next, Emily Leigh says to Google all the things.
Google all the things and don't be afraid of it. I have watched many a YouTube video about how to use Illustrator, how to set up an at-home camera situation. I'm 11, almost 12 years into this, and I'm still, even yesterday, I was Googling YouTube videos about how to hook up a DSLR camera with a ring light to an HDMI. I mean, it's a constant process, but don't be afraid to ask questions of friends. Google all the things, watch YouTube videos, and just be prepared to always be learning.
Is there any software that you use to, block certain distracting sites, or anything like that to really keep yourself on task?
I don't use anything necessarily to keep focus when I'm online, but I do try to give myself time every day to do some work in an analog way. So to use a pencil and paper, or to, work in my planner and that kind of thing. My whole team is remote, and we've always been remote. There's 8 of us, and we use a project management platform called Asana, and it is life-changing if you are working remotely with a team, or even if you're working, solo and you need a place to kind of keep projects and tasks organized. It is a wonderful, wonderful platform, and we keep everything in there.
That's awesome. Do you also use anything for communication with your team? I know that you talked about getting a lot of text messages when we've spoken to you before. Have you tried Slack? Is there any other communication tool that you like?
I have heard great things about Slack, but to me it seemed like another channel that I just didn't have brain space for. So we just keep it to a group text, and we use Zoom a lot. So we have a Zoom room, and we're constantly in and out of there, and small groups are our big group. And really just those 2 things just kind of keep it simple for us. We communicate through Asana as well. But we found just keeping it simple really is the best way for us.
Everybody,
I love that. And that also, sorry, Josh.
I was just going to say that everybody only has, a limited amount of headspace, and all of these platforms that are supposed to make things easier, when there's so many of them and you're having to learn a new one constantly and all the bells and whistles, it can add to the stress. So
yeah, I totally agree. And I need as few places as possible that can access my brain. So we try to keep it a little bit streamlined.
That's great. And it also keeps it low cost for people, which is important when you're starting out.
Absolutely. We have run our company debt-free now for almost 12 years, and it has not been easy, but that concept of don't pay for it if you don't absolutely need it has been pretty paramount to how we've been able to do that.
Great advice, Emily, that anybody working from home is going to like to hear.
Yeah.
And now Brandon White reminds us people want to help you. All right, Brandon, as definitely someone who has experience in technology living over there in Silicon Valley, we really want to know, what are your best tips about technology starting out? What can you tell someone? Where should they start if they're intimidated by all the technology they feel they need to learn in order to get going?
That's a great question. And I'm going to use my mom as an example. I tell my mom, and she's just getting into WordPress, is there's so many tutorials out there that you can go to and do it in the privacy of your own home with no one looking, with no social pressure that you don't know what you're doing, and watch those videos and take those tutorials. And the other resource that I would suggest people go to are forums. There's a ton of forums. There's a ton of groups on Facebook that you can join. There's still old school message boards out there that you can join, and people really want to help. The people on those forums are measuring their success by the amount of information that they can give you beyond what someone else can. And if you can use that to your advantage, they'll teach you all day long. So I'd say watch the videos. And even as a tech nerd, as some people call me, some of this stuff is still new to me. We started using a new program recently, and I had to sit down and spend 3 hours going through the videos. The great news is that the technology's gotten so good where the people can do it with their webcam and screen sharing that you really can get step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So I will say that for the newbie person out there, it definitely feels overwhelming. If you feel overwhelmed, you should know that that's how we all feel, even tech nerds occasionally. And just jump in and don't be scared to ask for help.
What are some of the few platforms or apps that you recommend for people?
Well, in general, if we were talking about email programs for someone who was starting, which I think email is probably having an email list, regardless of the type of business, is something that you should start collecting ASAP if you're not. Along with phone numbers, I wouldn't make that field absolutely required, but I would try to capture it because I think that's where the next frontier is as it relates to direct marketing. But the email list, I like ConvertKit. Nathan there has built, it comes from a world where he understands the niche players and he understands what they need, and he understands that it needs to be simple, and he provides tools. He actually has some really advanced features in there that some of the more advanced platforms don't, that you really need. So I would sign up for something like ConvertKit and go there and get my email list started. You could start an entire business and your web page, so to speak, with ConvertKit or a program like ConvertKit, because all you really need is a landing page, a lander. And if you have the lander, you build this, here's the problem I'm solving, here's your solution, here's why you should buy it from us, and give some sort of exchange for their email. As it relates to a website platform on a larger scale per se, I would say that WordPress is just a no-brainer. I have not found something as robust, nor has robust community that you could use. And it's relatively simple to use. There's tons of support. There's tons of communities and tons of videos. So for your website, I would say WordPress. They have templates that you can buy, and even the free ones are good. So you can get started really quick. I mean, for anybody out there, you could stand a website up in a day. That would get you rolling. So WordPress, ConvertKit for email. For project management, if you're going to start to scale a team and run a team, we actually use, I don't want to say everyone under the sun, but we use Trello is a good one. It's relatively easy to set up. Asana is a good one we use for some of our content management. And if you're going to go into the software world, Jira would be one. I wouldn't recommend Jira off the bat, unless you're into software development, mainly because it's a little bit more sophisticated and not as intuitive. But Asana and Trello are great tools to manage your team and tasks.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Chris Guillebeau's message is you don't have to master everything. Chris, what is your best tip for somebody who's nervous about technology?
Man, I'm nervous about technology. I guess the first thing I would say is you don't have to know everything, right? You don't have to worry about trying to master everything. Keep it simple. Yeah, I mean, there's so many businesses you can start right now without knowing how to code a website or without knowing how to make an app. I don't know how to do any of that kind of stuff. These days, there are a lot of accessible tools that just make it really simple. It's also possible to hire people pretty affordably, to help out if you get stuck with something. So I would say, don't let that be a hindrance. People often think a lot about what's the best website provider and all that kind of stuff. And it's much more important, I think, to think, what is the product? How am I going to change the world? How am I going to help this one person with this thing that I have to offer? And then you can figure out all the other stuff as you go.
Love that. And it can be easy to get distracted by all the tech stuff and
That's
all the
right.
choices. I remember when I was starting out, I made a giant spreadsheet comparing different email providers, I think. And I spent probably like a day trying to figure that out. I should have
Right.
just picked one and run with it, right?
Right.
So of all, I'm sure a lot of people ask you this to recommend different apps and platforms and things. And I know that you do make those recommendations on occasion.
Sure.
So of, let's say, the 3 or 4, what are the most common things people ask you to recommend, and what do you recommend?
Okay. Yeah, I think sometimes people are asking me for like something that doesn't exist. They're asking me for something that like does the work for them. Basically, they don't phrase it like that, but that's basically what they're asking. And I'm like, no, I don't think that we don't have that yet. But I think maybe people are asking often about getting overwhelmed, or like I have ADD, and I've talked about that before, and like how do I stay focused? And like other people are like I have problems staying focused too. So I'm a big list person. I'm a big, like, I write, like always writing down my to-do list and my ideas and stuff. I have a paper notebook with me, like at all times. And then the digital version of that I use is called OmniFocus, which is software that kind of integrates with my computer and my phone so that everything's kind of like synced together. So that's been helpful to me. But even if I didn't have the software, just like making the list is just good to keep me on track. And I try to work from that list. So I have it in front of me, like throughout the day when I'm doing stuff. I've got like a dozen tabs open. And so it's easy to kind of go down different like rabbit holes. But then I look back at the list, I'm like, this is what I need to do next.
I'm glad to hear that you have an old-fashioned paper and pen and pencil notebook. And I feel like in this day and age, we almost feel like we have to have 10 different platforms and everything has to be digitized. But there are definitely some things that the lo-fi, basic, old school way of doing things works if it works for you.
Yeah, that's the key point right there, what you just said. If it works for you, people have to find what serves them well. Like the email list provider doesn't really matter so much. It's like, what does it work for you? Okay, great. Let's move on to something that's more important.
Absolutely. Rick Mulready reminds us to educate yourself first.
Rick, what's your best tip for someone who knows that they need to start advertising on social media, but has never done it before and is kind of just overwhelmed by it, the idea?
Yeah. And most people are overwhelmed by it. Even when they get into it, it's overwhelming. So I would say, and I'm biased, of course, because I am a course creator, but you've got to educate yourself when it comes to getting in there and advertising, because there is no sure way to get frustrated by just jumping into it and being like, I have no idea what to do. I'm going to test this out, and you lose a bunch of money, and that's the worst thing ever. I get asked a lot, well, can I just go watch videos on YouTube? And so, oh, totally. Yeah, of course. But what you really want is like, kind of a start to finish. How do I set up a campaign, and how do I think about my audience and the ads and all that stuff? So if you can, and Facebook, for example, has they have a great training program called Blueprints, totally free. It's great, but it's not necessarily taking you through A, from start to finish, and B, it's not teaching you necessarily where things fit in the overall strategy. But if you want to learn about, I don't know, custom conversions, for example, great. Like the different topics that make up advertising on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, it's all there. It's really, really good training. But you really want a step-by-step training that walks you through, and that's going to give you the best opportunity to set yourself up for success when it comes to ads.
And can people start pretty simply? I mean, it can seem intimidating, but is it possible to just have, a little bit of budget and start with one ad and see how it goes? Is that something you recommend?
Yeah, totally. And, it's not as I'm not gonna lie, it's not as easy as it was, 5 years ago, But because back then you could do like $5 a day, one ad and, really get some momentum really quickly. You can do that, but you really want, I mean, honestly, if you want to build your email list and get some conversions and so forth, and you're driving to a lead magnet or to a webinar and so forth, you really need to be spending, I would say, between $15 and $25 a day. Again, it doesn't have to be a large amount. And you're running maybe a couple of different ads, maybe 2 ads. If we're going to keep it super simple, you can absolutely get momentum from that. You're going to see very quickly within a matter of days what's working, what's not working. And then you can just start building momentum from there. But yes, you can absolutely get started for very inexpensively.
I know that we also wanted to ask you about some of the best platforms. One of your expertises is launching online courses.
Yeah.
What are some of the, your preferred platforms to do that on?
I love Kajabi. I've been using Kajabi now pretty much since they started. I don't even know how long, like 4 years ago, something like that. When they first came out, I jumped on board. And at the time, they were just, quote unquote, just a course platform. So they were you could host your course there. We, in previous conversation, we've talked about how I work with students and they come to me and they like spend all this time building out a customized platform and stuff like that. Holy cow, don't do that until you validated your offer and all that stuff. But, a platform like Kajabi is great because they've really evolved over the past few years where it's a course platform, which makes it very easy to upload your videos and it organizes it. And it's really, really nice infrastructure in there for delivering your course. But now you can create landing pages in there. You can create sales pages. You can create your entire website in there. You can run email out of there now. You can do your checkout forms in there. You can build entire sales funnels in there with the pages and stuff like that. So they just have really done a good job in making it a kind of a one-stop shop for running an online business where you don't have to have this platform and how does this talk to this one? You just have it all in one. So I love Kajabi. I've been using it for a long time.
All right, Amy, I hope that people got a lot out of this episode. I think that it's the tech concern, worries, it's so common. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest fears that is stopping people from really getting going on their home hustle.
You're right, Josh. And I think it even holds people back who've been going for a while. I've been working on websites and landing pages and sales pages and platforms for many years now. And still I run up against the obstacle of telling myself that it needs to be more complicated than it really does. So I got a lot out of this episode too. It was really great. No matter where you are in your side hustle journey, remember that the technology does not have to be an obstacle. It really is out there to help you. And there's always someone available to help you with the technology.
And the thing is, once you've done it one time, then it's no big deal, right? Like we were afraid that there's no way we could pull off a podcast while we're socially distancing, working from home, 3 of us in different places, not to mention the people we would interview, but we did it. And now I'm kind of thinking, why don't we do more of these?
I totally agree. And I'm in.
All right, Amy. Well, I can't believe that this at least first run of Hustle from Home is already over. Stand by, stay subscribed. You never know. We might have another big episode or big season coming your way later on. It's been great to have you all with us. And it's been great to do it with you, Amy. Enjoyed it.
You too, Josh. Always a pleasure. And for you listening, congrats on your side hustle dreams. I can't wait to see what you create.